And we just let our kids be exposed to these, ingest them every single day, not realizing that there may not be an acute effect the following Friday, but for example, a lot of people with the disease that I overcame, eosinophilic esophagitis, like it shows up maybe in like their 20s or their 30s, or a myriad other chronic diseases, guys, that finally catch up to people once these. What's up, guys? This is Jason, Actualization, just walking around in my neighborhood right now, and I just had a profound idea come to mind, which is that food is the ultimate facilitator. And in this video today, I'm just gonna be riffing off of that one idea, guys. Food is the ultimate facilitator. And what I mean by that is that literally there is nothing as pivotal, of paramount, fundamental, foundational importance than what touches your tongue, teeth, and lips. I literally cannot conjure up a single idea of a thing that is not dramatically impacted for better or worse. And that's the problem, is that food intake is literally the quintessential double-edged sword. As I said, for better or worse. In terms of what touches your teeth, tongue, and lips, and how that impacts your mental state and your physical composition as well. Literally the body that you're loaning essentially to interface with life and to experience reality. Something fairly disturbing that I can speak to as a pharmacist for the last 5 years is that there are a lot of drugs that are actually renally excreted. And what that means is that there are two primary means of metabolism, and it's either hepatic, liver, or renal, which is your kidneys. And there's at least 50 drugs that are sufficiently renally excreted that they're literally in tap water. Like, it's not just birth control. For example, there are what's called anticonvulsants and even benzodiazepines, just all of these chemicals that are actually not filtered out of tap water. So just think about this idea of what people put into their bodies, which is not only not vaguely appropriate, but it's like nothing even remotely resembling actual food. And that's the fundamental problem, guys. We've gotten so far away from what that actually is. And it's one thing with other areas of life. I mean, I don't know, thinking about buildings, homes, right? Like, that's one thing. Like sleeping in a bed, for example, that isn't natural. I mean, yes, there are potential problems with toxins being offloaded from your mattress, but in terms of like what you're actually digesting, that's touching your esophagus, being exposed to your liver, to your gut, like going through your entire body, people have very little discernment with that which they expose themselves to. And it's not inaccurate. In fact, it's probably the understatement of the century to say that everyone and their cousin is on drugs. Like, literally, think about the impact of a heavily polluted water supply. And that's not to speak anything of the actual food supply, which is riddled with industrial seed oils, added sugars, and refined grains. And these three ingredients alone, with American ingenuity, have given rise to a plethora of highly processed, hyper-palatable foods that don't belong in you, your family, and loved ones' lives. Guys, you have to realize what these are taking from you on the back end, because they're so attractive on the front end, right? That's the problem with big food and advertising, and it's only going to get more sexy, right? More appealing. There are literally studies done to elucidate the concoction of these things. Added sugars, seed oils, and refined grains that render them the most delectable. Like, literally, this is an industry, and just think about how sick that is. When we're talking about something as simple and important and fundamental as food, the fact that that has been so greatly bastardized, right? It's so far removed from what it actually should be. What it should be is actual utter simplicity. Like water, for example, rainwater is just H2O. And of course, we've got a polluted air nowadays. So technically it's not perfectly H2O, but that's what it's supposed to be, at least in the context of the water cycle. But then think about food. What is that supposed to be? And where it is now, it's such a processed, Franken food, dirty variant of it. It's almost a disservice to even call it food. I mean, I feel like that word gets so loosely thrown around. We have to really ask ourselves what that actually is, and if these Frankenfood versions should even be classified as such. I would submit that they probably shouldn't be, and yet how many people are being discerning of that? You know, can you imagine, for example, something like smoking, which is now recognized to be incredibly harmful and not anything that you would ever expose your kids to, right? Even secondhand smoke, you would try to be as careful as possible in terms of exposing them to that, but you would never have your 10-year-old smoking a cigarette. But think about, like, you know, after the game, I'm just thinking, you know, I played a lot of ice hockey growing up, and on the way back home, it's like families that stop at fast food chains, like Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, BK, Wendy's, that gets so normalized. And having a medium fries on the side of your double junior Whopper, whatever, is so incredibly normalized, but those fries are literally fried in toxic vegetable oils, soybean oil not least of which, and these oils oxidize the fats that you're directly consuming. And it's literally the fats that make up your body at the cellular level. I mean, the fact that that has been so greatly normalized just goes to show you that anything, no matter how absurd it is, if enough people do it, enough people get bought into it, then no matter how initially absurd it is, it just gets normalized and it sort of just flies under the radar. I mean, it's all relative to what the conventional mainstream thought is. And if you go back far enough, what you see is that there was actually a point in time when cigarettes were celebrated, and doctors were not only actively smoking in the presence of their patients, but actively advocating for such. And I think we just have to realize, like, oh my God, like, if that's possible, like if we really expand the scope of what we're looking at and we kind of see the big picture, it just begs the question, is there anything that doctors are promoting nowadays, today? Is it possible that there's a modern version of that that rivals the insidious nature of cigarette smoke? And yes, I would say that there is, bar none, industrial seed oils, which have been celebrated for decades because they lower LDL cholesterol. And we just let our kids be exposed to these, ingest them every single day, not realizing that there may not be an acute effect the following Friday, but for example, a lot of people with the disease that I overcame, eosinophilic esophagitis, like it shows up maybe in like their 20s or their 30s, or a myriad other chronic diseases, guys, that finally catch up to people once these oils have sufficiently bioaccumulated in terms of the linoleic acid that we are consuming in ridiculous amounts that we were never designed to do so. I mean, when you consider that the average American consumes enough industrial seed oils in one day for it to require over 90 ears of corn to extract. Like, let that land. Over 90 ears of corn to extract the amount of inflammatory omega-6 fats that the average American is consuming in a day. Like, that is incomprehensible. Like, that's over 36,000 ears of corn in a year. So I think when you just see how ridiculous this is and just apply common sense, it's like, oh yeah, maybe we don't have the hardware to run that sort of software. Maybe there's just like this incompatibility, and when we get so far removed from where we've come from, maybe we shouldn't pin the blame on the very thing that we've evolved to consume in great amounts. You know, the 50% saturated fat that's in mammalian breast milk? Maybe we shouldn't demonize the thing that ancestrally were designed to consume from the cradle forward. Maybe it's just the case that seed oils were never proven to be healthy in the first place, and maybe the burden of proof should be on proving them to be innocent and not saturated fat to be guilty. Guys, thank you so much for checking out today's video. Food is the ultimate facilitator. For better or worse, it's a double-edged sword. You need to be very, very cognizant of what you are consuming, very intentional and deliberate about what you are digesting. Drop a comment down below, friends. What are your thoughts on this? How has your nutrition been of late? And how do you plan to consume your food moving forward? Guys, I love you all very much. Thanks for checking out today's video. And as always, friends, you already know. Till next time, find your freedom. Take care, guys. Peace.